Wasn't intentional. So, loud, that's because I am loud. So that was a really great presentation, so thank you so much, Dr. Mandel. That was very inspiring. So for us to keep your attention after that, we're going to have to keep this lively. And I have 3 colleagues here who run terrific programs and are just great people. Their bios are in your program, so I'm not going to go over that. I'm just going to introduce their name and agency. So I have Hank Lawson, who is with Frazier Revitalization, and they're in East, well, they're just right around the Fair Park area, right there. And then Marjorie, Murat. So sorry. Better. Okay, is that here? Is that better? Can you hear me if I just put it there? Speak loud. Can you hear me? Sorry. Is that better? Is that okay? Yeah. All right. Good. Thank you. Yeah. So Marjorie Murat is with Jubilee Park Community Center, and I should have mentioned. So Frazier Revitalization, if you're not familiar, they've been working in that community for well over a decade, and they are doing, they do housing, they do revitalization, they do a lot of work. They've done a lot of work both in school and in out of school time, and they actually have a network of out of school time providers they work with in that neighborhood. Marjorie at Jubilee Park is doing everything within that community, right? So economic development, housing, they work with the babies all the way up to the senior citizens, and they have a really very high quality after school and summer program from K through 12th grade. And then we've got Gloria Lopez, who's with TRM in West Dallas, Trinity River Mission, and they've been there decades as well. And they have over 500 children in an out-of-school time program going K through 12th grade. So all of these are very different neighborhoods, and we're talking today about community, out-of-school time in our community, and how we work together, how that makes a difference. So I told them all that even just because they're dressed up, I don't want their dressed up kind of very formal kind of discussion. I think that there's lots of differences in these neighborhoods and these communities, and how we all know that when we do this work, the community and the location really matters. So there might be differences in how they approach these things. So I want to get at those things as well. So I have just a series of questions, and I want them to, each of them, to kind of respond to them and how they think about that in their particular community, in their particular neighborhood. So first, so Hank, that's why I made you sit next to me, it's because I think you go first. So thinking about the neighborhood that you are in, what's the biggest need? And I'm going to be tough on you. I want you to know the biggest need that you're trying to address in your out of school time.
Well, first of all, our neighborhood is probably one of the poorest.
First of all, our neighborhood is one of the poorest in Dallas, and it is characterized by high crime rate. Most of the households are single-parent households, female-headed households, and about 30% of those are by grandparents. And right now, our elementary school has been on the IR list for the last couple of years. So we have some issues that we come into that we got to address first. And the most important one for parents is just a safe haven. You know, academic and all those other kind of things take a back seat. They just want a safe place for the kids to go. And then the other thing that we want to try to meet through our program is when they do come, that they do find examples of good social behavior, that they can be a party to that and respect that. And a third thing is just that as the need occurs, it is a safe place to deal with homework, to deal with tutoring, to deal with interpersonal needs. So those are the kind of things that we look for.
Hi everybody. So Jubilee Park is similar to the neighborhood that Frank, oh my gosh, I called you Frank, I'm so sorry, described. So we are an area that has a high Hispanic population. So with that, literacy needs and reading needs are highly needed because a lot of the parents in the neighborhood are undocumented or have very limited education. So we focus on reading and literacy in our programs, in our out-of-school time programs, and really our goal is to get our kiddos reading on grade level. That's a high priority for us. We offer intense reading literacy over the summer as well. We're part of a Tackle Summer Slide project, and our kids actually gain 2 to 3 months as opposed to losing typically about 3 months over the summer, so we're very excited about that. Education is really the foundation of all that we do, and we all know that reading is fundamental. So once you're able to do that, solving math problems, word problems, going into science and other subjects, all of that will come together.
I have this one. Okay. I'm going to try to speak out of this one. So I'm in particularly not a very different neighborhood than in the South Dallas. We're in West Dallas, and much like South Dallas, we're also one of the highest poverty rate areas. Some of the issues within that specific area primarily are equitable opportunities. Equitable education, giving these children and families an opportunity to experience and to have the same level of opportunities that everyone else has. TRM has been working maybe further away. Maybe right here. Okay, so TRM has been working since the 1960s in that area, and throughout the years we found that education was the one component where we found that our children were struggling with the most. Primarily in that sector, it's highly populated with a Hispanic population and African American population. So we have focused primarily on academics and trying to get our kids up to par with reading, literacy, the same things that she was following. However, we've kind of switched in the recent years, and we decided that we needed to do a holistic approach. And what that looks like was meeting the overarching needs of our kids, not only just academic, obviously, as was mentioned earlier, the social and emotional component, but also looking at what are the true factors that were impacting our community. And what we realized was that our kids were learning to read, our kids were performing in school higher, but the measurements that were being used were not being as effective. So one of the things we spoke about earlier were report cards. We found that our kids were having high grades, and when we did internal assessments, we realized that there's kids that have been in 12th grade, 10th grade, 8th grade that were reading and performing at a first pre-K kindergarten level. So we had to go back and restructure everything and realize that there was a bigger problem than what we had realized. And so that's where we are tackling and trying to tackle that holistically with our children.
So, and I'm going to now go back down this way. Okay.
I don't know if this is working.
I'm good? Okay. So, so as you talk about those key issues, and you all have pretty much the same issues that you're working on, how do they lend themselves to working together with others in your community? I'm just going to go back by the way. You can, Hank's ready. He's ready to answer that. You want to let him answer?
All right, well, let me back up. Our community, one, is trauma and stress is a way of life, and it's been generational. So oftentimes when our kids start school, when we notice that a child will come to school and the last thing on their mind is school because of what's going on in their life at home or in the community. And so if the school's not addressing that, somebody in the community's got to address that. I mentioned to you about a safe haven. Well, most of our programs are very small. They were neighborhood just for a child to have a safe place to go after school. And we didn't have a lot of high quality programs. So what we tried to do was form a network of all those partners to share resources and to share training. So the need for us was to build capacity of these programs. And we turned to Dallas After School, we turned to Big Thought, to their programs to help us grow. But we also said, look, you got to be mindful of this trauma and stress in these kids' life. Because a lot of what you're doing doesn't address that the way it should be. And if you help us with your resources, then we'll help you with our understanding of this community. So this is how we've gone about participating in after-school program, working with DISD, working with Dallas After School, and with our partners. to say that we're in this together, that there's a shortage of resources, all of us don't have what we need, and we're certainly not going to go get a whole lot more. So the sooner we learn to work together and understand we're dealing with the same problems, the better off we are. So we preach, fight, holler. If we got to leverage these resources, we have to work together. And for us, in our community, one of the big things been in the paper has been the state fair. And our neighborhood abuts the state fair. And been there all these years and haven't really seen that much help from the state fair. Okay. But we reached out to the state fair, and you have all these wonderful resources. Big Thought has all these badges that they do with the City of Learning. And we're saying to the state fair, you know, you've got all these programs and awards you give in all these different categories. Art, photography, sewing, okay? Why can't those be the badges for our kids and they're right here in the neighborhood? So Big Thought, why can't we bury these things? So that's how we try to get people to work themselves, just recognizing the needs that we have to address.
So, Marjorie and Hank's like covered a couple of my questions at once there, and that's all good, all right, that's good. So, if you could, because you just described what it's like to work in your neighborhood with others, right? You talked about how you're bringing the context of the neighborhood and that history that you all have, so that when you bring people in, they can be successful. So Marjorie, is that good?
Yeah.
Are you going to answer to that? Okay. So Marjorie, what does it mean in Jubilee when you're in your neighborhood? What do you think about when you're talking about working together? And Hank mentioned some groups that are important for him to work with. Who's important in your neighborhood for you to work with?
I'd say everybody is. I mean, down from community members, our parents, our children, staff, even our leadership staff and board members. We are only a 14-person agency, and we do a whole lot, and similar to Trinity Mission, we take a holistic approach to the families in the community. So one of the things that we do, when you mentioned dosage, one of the things that we do to help in working together, making sure that there's that involvement, we do have mandatory parent meetings. So in order for their child to enroll, to completely enroll their children in our program, they have to attend a mandatory parent meeting. All of the services we offer at Jubilee Park and Community Center are free, so they don't pay for it. So we need to make sure that parents are vested and invested, not in a financial way, but in wanting more for their children. And so we have incorporated that. We also have a pretty strict attendance policy. Our children need to attend 75% of the program in order to stay in the program. Because like Dr. Van Dale said, dosage is important, and we really believe that as well. Parent engagement is extremely important. We have over 800 or odd volunteers that come through our agency a year, so a lot of them help in our food services, but we really want those parents working with the children in the classroom. So our partnerships involve schools, private schools, social emotional learning is extremely important as well, and so we partner with Momentous, and they have conducted small huddle groups at the agency for kids who really need it. Of course, Dallas AfterSchool and maintaining our certification. Okay. Okay, well, I was trying to plug. But, and other issues are language barriers, like I said, and so homework time is important at Jubilee. We have certified teachers on staff. Not everybody is certified, but about 5 of our staff are retired certified teachers. And so where education needs to be a passion, really. And so hiring staff that is reflective of the population we serve is extremely important to us. Bilingual staff is important to us. But there's also staff turnover. So those are some issues that we face.
Yeah, okay, that was good.
Just follow that up.
Yeah, in your community, who are you trying to work with? What's important about working together, or how do you go about working together with these groups?
I think the one thing that stands out in West Dallas the most for me, just so everybody knows, I grew up there. I've been part of that since part of this organization since 1985, and I lived in West Dallas since then. And growing up, the one thing that I've always learned from my community is that it really does take a village to raise a child. I am a product of after school, of the ISD and all these things. I'm a product of the community. A lot of you that are out there had something to do with me at one point in time as a child and now as an adult. But I think it really does that. And so when we came into TRM had the same approach. They knew that they couldn't do everything by themselves. So we decided to work with everyone and look at everyone around us as a collaborative, as a resource, as a person that can help. But the one thing that I think that stood out greatly was that beyond looking at our community as people that needed us, we looked at our community as a resource. So we looked at our parents as, and saw what our parents could provide. And a lot of times when you work with families, you think these are low-income families, they have certain skills. Well, you'd be surprised that there's so much talent. For TRM, we've saved countless amounts of money in our building, in our buses, in our food. We have in, some of you guys can attest to this, we have a catering system now that our parents, our moms and dads run. They make the food and all the proceeds go to benefit the programs. So we look at those and we look at those as high-level partnerships with our families. So, and also with our youth, looking at our youth and teaching them. One thing that I learned was to give back, which is I think why I am in the business that I am now. It was important for me to give back to the community what was given to me, that privilege and that belief that I could do something. So I think when we talk about these things, we commonly forget that we have a gold mine of resources within them. So just as important with that, also obviously other nonprofits, talking, communicating. There's not one single agency out there, not even TRM, that can solve every problem. So each one of us, beyond working together, need to communicate, talk to each other, share resources. That's the one thing that I've struggled the most as program director, identifying program manuals and things like that. I'm like, that should have been there. It's, you know, this agency's been here forever. But oddly enough, and some of you can attest, there is nothing out there that is, not even a program manual out there for somebody to follow as a guideline. So it's all of these different components that come to place. I know we think about working with local churches, we think about working with businesses, we think about working with all these funders and providers, but don't forget the little guys when you're thinking about that, because there's a lot of benefit from there.
You want to add?
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to add something.
I want you guys to talk.
I want to add something real quick that's very important. In our very low-income neighborhood, I mentioned to you that we came about because we were just trying to provide a safe haven. It wasn't to be a fancy place because we didn't have the money. But when we started working out, in our network, there are 7 of us that have signed agreements to work together. And we had a meeting yesterday of our network, and it was about 35 people there, the library, the school people, all the folks we need to work with there, the police department, PAL, all of them. But here's what's important to know. The network was the only vehicle in which we could grow our capacity. If left alone, we would have floundered with the lack of resources, and a year from now we'll be doing the same thing because we don't have the capacity to hire teachers and do those kind of things. So the need in our neighborhood was extremely great to work together. And so that's why I'm saying you gotta holler sometimes, you gotta cajole sometimes, but we had to get everybody out of that silo because it was a very weak silo. And so this is what we've been able to do in trying to recognize in our neighborhood, if we don't work together, then we're just going to be same old, same old. We can't attract. Funding is not going to come to us. None of us, very few of us had evidence-based results. So, you know, we can say all day long that we do something, but if we couldn't have the data to support it, the scarcity of funding was not going to touch us.
Okay, so this question, you knew this one was coming. So we talked about how you work together in the community, who you work together, the issues you're trying to solve as you do that. What are the barriers that you run into? And Gloria, I'm going to start with you this time. Barriers you run into to try to be working collaboratively and in your community together with others.
I think one of the things that we've seen as far as a barrier with working with other people is just ensuring that your mission is connected with whoever you're partnering with. I mean, that seems to be sort of a given, but I've actually experienced that where we're working towards something and your missions just don't go hand in hand. I think the other thing is sometimes when we've brought outside providers or people from out of our neighborhood, they don't understand the dynamics of what it is to work within those groups and those populations. We can take many things into consideration, and I think a lot of times we forget that we have certain biases that we are not aware of within ourselves. So it really is a matter of trying to educate and empower even those providers, those people that are coming in and working with you, to understand that, you know, I've had people that are come in and like, I don't understand, this is a free program, why wouldn't you want it? Well, sorry. How long have you been around? What are your outcomes? What are your details? I want to see it in practice. And so one of the things that I respect very highly about what we do is that we actually vet all of our partners. And we make sure that they fit what we're going to do. And prior to starting with us, they get a tour. Maybe it's a little going overboard, but I literally throw them in my car and I give them a tour of the area and I show them where I grew up and I show them sort of the issues and barriers and realistic things that our community and kids are still struggling with, because I want them to understand who they're going to work with. And that's something that I don't think a lot of approaches take place. So what I've seen with that is that when people come in, it actually helps them to understand and it helps them to be more effective, and the results have been amazing. So outside of that, I'm all for working together as long as, you know, there's mutual understanding.
My response is very similar to Gloria's. Everything that we do or when people approach us needs to relate back to our mission. We meet with a lot of people with huge visions, visionaries, which is really, really great, but you also need to be realistic about what you can do and your capacity and, of course, funding sources, because we all want the same thing for our agencies, and so we compete for the funding. So sometimes I think there's a lack of trust sometimes that may rear its head amongst agencies, because we all want that same dollar. But the wonderful thing is being a data-driven agency helps not only tell your story, but it also helps us, meaning Jubilee, be extremely clear and transparent in everything that we do. We did partner with the Center for Nonprofits, so our website, our data dashboard is there. So of course you want to highlight your strengths, but then since we want to be extremely transparent, challenges that we have can be found on there as well. So I think those are definitely some barriers. What else? Like Gloria said, when we meet with a lot of people who want to do wonderful things for us, and sometimes you have to say no, because is it going to really make an impact on what it is that you really want to do? Is it going to move there?
Well, let me speak to the barriers first to our network, because that's important. We provide a lot of services in that neighborhood out of necessity. It wasn't our mission just to do after school providing, but we were there to revitalize the neighborhood, and education was a big piece of it. So in our particular space, we say, well, look, we got to have an after-school program. But here's the problem, what she just mentioned, the lack of trust. There's 5 or 6 of us, we had our own little turfdom, all of us short resources, and then when you come to the table, ask them to come to the table, if you don't have $1 for them, they don't want to come. So all of these are these kind of dynamics that you have to keep in front of you when you plan things, to hold it together. So the longer we can go and hold them to the table and show results, a lot of that distrust begins to dissipate, and the more we can introduce them to the outside resources, Dallas After School, Big Dog, State Fair, make them a part of their day-to-day operations, then it's a lot easier for us to begin to have a collective vision and a collective effort. And so, because the scarcity of resources is very real in that neighborhood. One of the things that was difficult for us had to do with our school. When they came in and instituted Superintendent Miles, it disrupted our school program to install what they wanted. And they brought in all these new teachers ready to teach. And, okay, there we go. And we're not ready for this, these kids that have this background in trauma and stress in their lives. And so the teaching experience was a very difficult one, right? And for the most of them, they didn't last more than a year. So for the last couple of years, we've got a school that's on this IR, and we have a high turnover in teaching. And these teachers come to this school not ready to deal with this trauma and stress that these children face. So we've been saying to our partners, you know, it's incumbent upon us to recognize this and try to find a way to align our stuff with what they're doing to see if we can help out. But that is a barrier in itself because we didn't have the commitment from the teachers to see us as an ally. I mean, they were still struggling with just trying to get their hands around the situation in that classroom that was a very big problem for them.
I just want to add another barrier which unfortunately is a barrier. Sometimes parents can be barriers as well. Even though we are here and what we do are for the kids and, you know, closing achievement gap or whatever it is that we do, parents sometimes present as a huge barrier in the sense of committing to bringing their child to the center. Dr. Mendel also talked about duration. We actually had to post signs because we want the children to experience the full program. So we actually had put signs around the center that says, please do not pick up your child before 6. We're not a holding cell because you get off work at 3:30 and you can't get there till 4:30. We're not a drop-in, drop-off type of center, and that's what we told the parents. We're not a daycare center. For your child to fully experience the program, our enrichment programs and what we have to offer, do not pick them up before 6. And you've got some saying, I've got this, it's 5:30, okay. So, you know, we've come a long way, but, but parents certainly can be a challenge when you really want to help their kiddos.
Okay.
I'm actually going to follow up with that and go the opposite end. We have parents that leave their kids with us, and trying to get them to go home is the issue. But that does present a barrier in trying to deliver programs because when you have capacity and you have, you know, some programs require silence, like from 6 to 8 p.m. We call TRM quiet zone because we're doing our tutoring program. Well, if I have 60 kids that are just hanging out because this is a safe space, then that creates sort of a barrier for what we're trying to create. Now, how do we solve that? That actually was put back on the parents. I think we put so much emphasis in providing services and teaching our kids and empowering our kids, but we have to do the same approach to the parents. You have to educate the parents and empower them to understand that. So we host parent meetings the last Friday of the month, and there's no programming at this point that would be necessary. We call you to let you know. So what do? I had 200 parents at that meeting. Every single parent raised their hand and said, we will keep those devices at home. They made that decision. I didn't have to make it. And for the last year alone, I had to take up 0 phones. I also said I also threatened and said I would charge $40 if I took their phone. But, you know, you kind of have to put those things in there, so maybe that'll help.
So I'm just going to ask you, do you care to share what's the one problem remaining?
Picking up their kids. And that problem, but you know, when I talked to so I took it to the kids and I asked the kids, why do you guys want to be here? And I can't fight that. They said, Miss, this is second home. You should know that, and I do. And I said, okay, so what did I have to do? I had to create living space areas for them to hang out and have a safe place. So sometimes you have to just adjust your program. So yes, we do an academic, social and emotional, high quality program, but that also encompasses an area of just chilling for our kids. So we have what we call a chill zone and a chill space.
Okay. So each of you started to talk about how you overcome these barriers, but I want to see if you have anything more specific you want to add. Marjorie, we'll start with you this time. On overcoming barriers, like you talked about barriers to working together. What are effective practices to overcome those barriers?
I think I mentioned before, I think it's overcoming the barriers sometimes can be cultural, educational. So hiring staff that's reflective of your population, I think, is extremely important, because the child is already, or most of the children in our program deal with a lot of, like you said, a lot of stress, a lot of toxic stress. And so we really have to be able to, when the child is always kind of at this high level, they're not going to be open to learning. They may come to us hungry. We also feed them a sizable lunch. And in the summer, we feed breakfast, lunch, and provide them with a snack as well. Because, you know, if you're hungry, you can't do it. We have community feeding programs in the sense of they can come in. We have an industrial-sized kitchen and chicken. And so community members can come in. We have what we call a living room, a great room. And like she said, they can come and chill. They can have coffee. If we have any kind of leftover food, they you know, try cereal, different things like that. So I think engaging the community has been something that we focus on all levels, seniors, like you said, the babies, all of that. I think we're not the expert on everything, but I think we're doing a pretty good job on addressing, you know, community needs and educational needs of the folks in the community.
Want to talk about how effective practices to overcome some of those barriers?
For the network, see if it's a platform for new resources to come to all of our partners who may have not had the opportunity to reach those resources on their own. But at our meeting yesterday of our network, we had a presentation from Dallas AfterSchool, the tech center. Best Buy has a tech center in the neighborhood. They were scheduled to speak to talk about summer programs, availability to use the tech center for all of our partners. The state fair is scheduled to come. So overcoming the barriers is just being an active participant in our network, because all those resources come to our monthly meetings. And so they're now, and they're participating in the training, by the way. That's the most important thing. So a lot of those kind of things to dispel the mistrust, what have you there. At our own site, we're at a public housing site, and we operate a program there. And our biggest problem is just dealing with families, with parents or guardian, to get them more involved. When we started our program a few years ago, 96% of the kids walked home by themselves. You know, they lived there, the program was over, they walked home. We had all that language in the book about parents signing in and all that kind of stuff, but it wasn't going to work. And we're still there. Now we're getting to the point where parents come pick up their kids, and maybe a few even come early and work in the program. So meeting the parents where they are. You know, we can't hold as high a standard. We can put it up there, but we got to meet them where they are and take them by the hand where they are and see if we can work with them to get them to grow, to accept our program. All of them accept our program as a safe haven. That was the first and foremost thing. Now we have to find ways to involve them, to connect those families in a way that they are more involved. But as we do that, we also have to do it with the schools. And one of our colleagues, Ms. Walker, will be on a panel. But our biggest challenge, and she's our outreach person, is to get those same families we deal with, to get them more involved in school as well, because they go together.
I think I just created a little summary check-off list for you guys. Well, first and foremost, the biggest thing is vet. Vet your partners. That way, that will help reduce some of these barriers that you will find. Even with your families, sometimes you'll find that maybe the program is not a good fit, so you might be able to have them go to some other program that would be more beneficial. So definitely communication. I'm a big fan of that. Communicate with your people, but honest communication. I think one of the things that I found in my experience working in a nonprofit is we're kind of like the Care Bear group. We want to be loving and friendly and social butterflies with each other, and by all means, I'm there. But I also have this thing where you want to be transparent. You want to be honest about things. You want to discuss the issues that are really there, and you have to be honest with each other. And I think the fact that I am a product kind of allows me to say a little bit more than most people. But you do, and I think that's the only way that we'll learn. So putting it back on them, working together to solve the problem, that is going to be the biggest thing that I've learned from, because I thought I was going to have to come in here and solve it, and it turns out I don't. I just put it right back and say, hey, this is what the issue is. Educating and empowering ourselves, our staff, our partners, our parents, our community, setting guidelines and expectations that are clear. A lot of times we have all these documents and none of us know what the heck they mean. The same thing happens with our kids, the same thing happens with our parents. When you look at things as standard as your rules and your policies, please make sure that these things make sense, they're in easy language for them. So those are just some of the things that I've realized have sort of helped to set that structure. Listening to your kids, listening to your partners, listening to your community. Drive around your area, talk to strangers, talk to people that are not in your program, and see what are the other issues that are out there that you're not aware, and definitely flexibility, as everyone here knows.
Let me see. One thing I do want to add, and Gloria said this, it's important to know your community. We do monthly block walks with our calendar of activities. And we just we don't put them just in the mailbox or at the door. We actually knock. Hopefully someone answers and we have a conversation with them. We've been able to increase our enrollment in our out-of-school time programs. We were like, oh, what exactly do you do there and whatnot. So we get to know the people. Where we work, you have to get to know the people in your community. That's extremely important. Yeah.
So, last question. This is like you guys had this out of talk, okay? So, one effective practice that you do in your out-of-school time program, or that you've done recently, just one thing, one success you want to brag. And you can't knock that out of the park, right? You know, I mean, there's funders in this room. All right.
Well, let me speak to the network and then our own site. I think I'm very, very proud of our network. South Dallas is probably the most politicized neighborhood in all of Dallas. And we have a hard time sitting down and trusting one another. But this is our third year. As I mentioned to you, we average better than 35 people a meeting. The library, the police department, the school counselors and stuff, they all come to our monthly meetings. So I'm very proud that we're all now talking the same language. And what we do with it, we still got a little ways to go, but we've overcome that barrier. The other one at our local site, what I'm very proud of, is that we work very hard, give it again now, that the school is IR, recruit required. We touch the family in school, after school, and in the home. We have paid volunteers at Dunbar that work in the classroom with the students, help with behavior problems. We know this trauma, stress community sends them to school not ready to be a good student. So we put help on that campus to deal with that stress. And then in the home, when our outreach person works with those same families, we used our network to be a part of that Stop the Summer Slide, to get parents for room, to be a platform to get all those resources that would have missed us, to say to them, if you come to us, we'll make sure that we put it out in the community. So I'm very proud of that.
Okay, I'm going to say, before we go to the first one, I'm going to say, so Hank's a legend in this community, as most of you know, and yeah, you are, don't make that face. And I stalked it for a while before you would like to take my meeting or talk to me or anything, but one thing that people have quoted you as saying, I've heard multiple people on this quote, like I'm ready to write this down. When people come to your neighborhood, the issue there is, you say, either people do not care or they care without context.
Sure, I think one thing, we take basically kind of like a climate survey with our parents and with our kiddos and whatnot, and one of the things I feel that came out of that was we expanded to our partner schools. So our out-of-school time programs in the past were at the center. So this is our first year where we're actually able to be housed at the school and at the center. So we're able to serve more children, which is hugely important. And I think effective practice also is having resources there, because where we are, public transportation, it's a food desert, all of those things. So having things there so people don't necessarily have to leave the neighborhood to seek out those resources is, I think, a hugely effective practice. So we feed the seniors, we have Zumba, everybody wants to come to Zumba, 8:30. So, you know, the public health aspect, and not only are we educating the children, we're also educating the parents as well. So we have adult learner programs. So we offer ESL, we offer computer classes. We're working with SMU on this new project around literacy, which is huge. So almost kind of like a one-stop shop. So that's been extremely effective for us. And we see the progress happening. So that's exciting.
As far as effective practices, I think the most effective practice that we've had is in looking into our own pockets and really digging in there and seeing, not only as individuals, but as a community, as a gold mine within our own little sector, to try to bring some life. I mean, prior to a few years ago, prior to that bridge that was built, we were a very ignored area. No one really wanted to come. And honestly, I'll be very honest, I sit there and I welcome people and I'm like, welcome to the lead-infested crowd. And they look at me with deer in the headlights and they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I've grown here all my life. This used to be welcome to where we would throw our trash. And well, that's where you're planting your little garden now. And people look at me like, oh my God, where did I come? Know where you're going. Know where you're going. Learn about the history. That's been one of our best practices, learning from history, learning from the people that have been there before us, the people that have paved the road, teaching our kids about that. That's very important in what we do. A lot of my kids, I actually never realized how impactful it was for my kids to walk in and see my picture hanging on the left side of our wall as a former student. I was like, well, I was embarrassed. I'm like, don't see my picture. And they go up there and they see it and they're like, Miss, do you not realize that you were there? One of ours was there, so that means that my picture is certainly going to be up there. And out of the 550 kids that I have worked with throughout the years, not one child has not believed that they will be up there. And actually, I went from having about 15 kids to now having over 200 kids threatening me, which I think is cute, that they're going to take my job. So I feel honored to know that somewhere along the lines I at least have 200 choices of people to choose from. So definitely, I think looking into that, digging into your pockets and figuring out what coins you have in there and making them, empowering them would be very useful.
Okay, we have time for some questions. Oh, first hand, let's shot up there. I didn't hear it, and the question was, especially with different demographic populations that may not speak English, how do you work with the parents to help them know the benefits of the program as well as help their kids to learn? That's both Jubilee and Trinity River Mission, that's an issue.
Yes, we encourage our parents to
Is it
be.
becoming one of your students?
We encourage the parents to be a part, to volunteer in the classroom if they're able to. That's one way we do it. And like I said, we offer ESL classes, so we encourage them to sign up for our adult education classes. And of course, we have bilingual staff who can help with that. Many of our parents want their child to complete their homework 100% before they pick them up, because they know at home they're not going to be able to help them with that. But parent engagement is something that we of course want to increase and you know, kind of drive the number of parents involved in our program. But those are a few things that we do at Jubilee to assist those. We have clinics that come through, so we offer a lot of different resources to them to assist.
I think first, for a lot of people that are working predominantly with Hispanic population, immigrant families, the fact that they're there searching or seeking out a program is the first step. And I think there's this overarching deal. I actually was born in Mexico. I was brought here when I was 5. I didn't speak the language. My parents immigrated as well. And the first place that they found was TRM. And then they found a couple of other agencies. And my parents my dad went to 3rd grade, my mom went to 1st grade. So they were like, how can I help you with your homework? I can't do this. So this is why they went out and sought that. Now, the thing that my mom and my dad have learned was through the program, and what we do is that it doesn't start and stop with our kids. It has to be a continuum. So we started bringing our parents in to do what they felt comfortable with. We said, well, can you help us with this volunteering things? And then that's actually how our parent program evolved. Our parents said, hey, you guys do so much for us. Can we create our own parent program where we can come together and cook? Maybe we can make breakfast. And it started with that. And then a dad came and said, hey, maybe I know how to do mechanical work. Can I come in and do that? And we had him come in and teach other parents how to do that. So that's where it goes back to using their skills and abilities and then working towards that. We partner with Victory Meadows Learning Center, and when they moved to West Dallas, and they came to us and said, well, we don't know if we're going to be here for a long time because we don't know what the need is. So we're a sub-lease year building. They were there 1 month, and they had a huge waiting list. And they came back to us, and they were like, whoa, this is now going to be an official program. So we started telling our parents, if you really want to help your child, we can do all these things for you. We can help your child become successful, but you will be the ultimate teacher. So by saying something just as simple as that, we not only told them that, but we gave them a direction. We moved them towards Victory Meadows to learn ESL classes. We took them to Anita Martinez and had them take our dads. We're like, well, we're not really interested in reading or learning to speak English. Okay, well, what do you want to do? Have a basketball game with your kid at the rec center. At least to kind of have them have that family infrastructure built. It's actually a TRM where I first had my dad sit down and read a book with me. And I read it to him, and he didn't know what I was saying, but just knowing that was impactful enough. And 20-some years later, I have my nephew reading to my dad as well, and it's like, wow, it's the same thing. So it really is about utilizing different things and building them. These parents are coming here, they're tired, they're exhausted. They're not used to services being free. They're not used to having resources out there. In Mexico and in South America, it is a whole different ballgame just to get into a woman going into labor will have to give labor on her own without any type of assistance from the family or not even the parent. The dad can be in there. Like, you have to learn all these different factors and the differences in their mindsets. And that helps us to evolve and to be able to help them feel more welcome in our area and in our space. And building those support groups with each other, those are so powerful. Our moms have such an amazing support group that they built. Our dads as well. So just we kind of have to pave that way and allow them to build that. And sometimes it starts with just gossiping in the kitchen.
And I want to add something that I know, I'm pretty sure all 3 of your programs do, is that if there's an issue at the school, all of you will send staff with the parent to help advocate, or the guardian to help advocate for the child. And that may be because of the English language, it may be just because of the intimidation factor with the school. I think all of you are talking to your parents, working with them about what are the options they have within the school system around magnets and charters and school choice. And so you all 3 of your organizations really play that role. And I don't know that it matters demographically with parents, but these parents don't understand all those resources and only teach those things. Did you want to add something?
Well, real quickly, our biggest problem is the change in demographic in our neighborhood. 10 years ago, 95% African American. Now, probably 70%, the fastest growing population is Hispanic, and we're not ready for it. And we weren't ready for the diversity, and we didn't really plan for the diversity. So part of our network is to deal with diversity, and we deliberately went out and got a couple of small neighborhood programs that were in black neighborhoods that served predominantly Hispanic kids who couldn't speak English that well. So, and we knew those same parents were having problems at the school because very few of the school programs were designed to attract those kids to be a part of the program. So we're working with the schools and those parents and our partners to recognize that this is something that if we don't get involved right now, we're just asking for problems.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't really see.
I just have a commentary about the impact of parents. That wall of honor, that wall of honor in which your picture is noted, Gloria, and all the other graduates, was an idea that came from a community mom, and that was Mrs. Toscano. She took all the pictures, put up the frame, and we had a nice celebration. So you're planting a lot of seeds everywhere, and you don't know how it germinates and how it grows. But just to hear the comments now, it really fills my heart that it came from a community mom, one of our moms, who wanted to make a difference and wanted to contribute in some way, took the pictures, and we started the Wall of Honor for the Believe and Achieve program. So I just wanted everyone to know that. It doesn't just start today or yesterday or, you know, even 10 years. I mean, the impact is so great, and it grows along the years.
That's a great idea for everybody to steal.
Hi everyone, Jerry Hawkins, Bachman Lake Together. I want to ask about something that Mr. Lawson talked about.
Oh, there's a couple.
You're gonna get me fired. I'm not ready to get fired now. Oh, mercy. This is it's an easy one to answer, but it's a very sad one. But we work very closely with the city. But an example, we presently have an application before to do a tax credit project to build affordable housing in our neighborhood. And it's having a lot of problems, political problems. But in our neighborhood, people pay way more than 30% of their income for rent, often 40 to 50% of their rent, or income for rent, and it's substandard housing. And so, and they keep saying, well, we want income or housing for high income groups. And well, somebody with high income is not going to look at our neighborhood, okay, that readily to come live there because of all that goes on down there, the perception. So, part of our challenge, and this was not by accident, 4 or 5 years ago, we said we're going to focus on education. Our organization, Frazier Court, is seen as the quarterback in a collective impact initiative that deals with education, housing, economic, job training, all these things. And so when we do anything, it's with that comprehensive look to deal with all those barriers, not just education, but we have a lawyering center on our place where a lot of our families have tickets and lose their license, all kinds of stuff like they don't know how to fight it. And so their families suffer. Well, just a little thing about having that lawyering center available to them and free legal service helps them understand that they can have those things resolved, see? So those are the things we're doing to try to get the community. I gave you an example of the housing one, and maybe we can get past that. But the city has been brought involved to do things. What you don't realize is at the city level, they have all these different departments, but they're siloed. They don't speak to one another. They don't work together. So it's our job to say, okay, all of you come sit down together. And here's what we're trying to do collectively, you know, with the schools. You know, here's what we need, those kind of things. So we're well over that. I know Jubilee, I looked at them, they have done this here successfully. But the same thing, we got to deal with a whole lot of issues that impact education and family. Health is a big one. And we're just now getting where we're working very closely with Baylor and Parkland to get them outside of the emergency room to recognize that if we had exercise, diet, fresh food, those kind of things, that those families would be in a far better shape physically, socially, and mentally to deal with a lot of this stuff.
Add to that, especially for some of gentrification.
Oh, yes. Not a big fan. So, you know, Jerry brought up a good point about the 300 houses that are being evacuated with our families. And obviously some of our families were impacted with that. And when they were building the bridge and bringing in Trinity Groves and changing everything, we thought, oh, that's nice. You know, they're fixing up the neighborhood. And obviously you see the impact on those families and what's happened. But here's the one thing that people didn't see. They didn't see the community come together. They didn't see that a former TRM student and a volunteer of TRM were the ones that are at SMU studying law and decided to come in and say, we're bringing the law aspect into this. We're going to try to help you guys solve this. They didn't see the community go and knock on the mayor, council, and all these other people's houses, and there was all these meetings that took place, and all these people came together, and people offering other people houses. My father has a house down there, and he was like, okay, I can house maybe 3 families in here. So it was a beautiful thing to see, and I think West Dallas is going to be that one place that people are going to see the difference in, and I think the difference is that the other populations, not that you guys don't come together, but you're bigger and wider areas, and there's a lot more things in there. With our neighborhood, we have communities that actually are merging in and fighting. You know, you had the Los Altos community that came, that did some pre-work. The Los Altos community also had the benefit of having English second-generation families living there prior to the 80s, and have had, actually at this point, have 5th-generation American families living there. So they stood up and they fought and they protected that area. And then they didn't stop. They went over to Los Altos and they started talking to Los Altos and started saying, hey, this is what you guys have to do. And people thought they could take advantage of Los Altos because there were more predominantly immigrant families in that area, in that neighborhood. And there was a literacy issue and all kinds of stuff. And they did take advantage of that. But they weren't ready for the power of the community and the people that are going to come and stand. So as far as concern for what TRM can do, we will do what we need, whatever it takes to support our families. As far as our future, it's going to be there. There's a need. There will always be a need. TRM and in West Dallas for that kind of programming, for that kind of support. Maybe the shift will change, but I know that we've had families that moved out to Flower Mound, Fort Worth, Mansfield, and they still come. So somewhere or another, we're gonna, even if we have to shift it to that area. But what is most empowering to me is to see how the people are coming together and how we're going to continue to work together. Sort of what happened in Oak Cliff with the Bishop Arts area. That whole area was, you know, they came in trying to tackle it, and people stood up. And they weren't counting on that. Well, guess what? West Dallas is a bigger part of that, and it's going to be fought.
Okay.
Thank you all.
This is lunch.
Just a little bit of direction. You've got 15
It will be led by Crystal Rentz, who is from DISD Administration. She's had many, many roles, and you've seen in your bios, and she'll
microphone. I'm a really loud talker, so I'm going to dial it down. So good afternoon. I'm excited to be here. It's always fun to be in a room with people that have the same passion. As introduced, I work at Lawson School District. My main role is Director of Summer Learning and Extended Day Services, essentially everything out of school time. It's an exciting job. It's a job that has some ups and downs. A lot of schools and a lot of different areas. We've heard from some of the community members that we're not, we're one district, but I kind of feel like there's about 10 districts inside that district. So I'm very passionate about this topic. And it's interesting, you spoke about how you need to get district people, parents, you need to get campus people, and we have that here. We have district level personnel working with after school programs, we have an administrator on campus, and then a couple of parents. I think we're going to get some really neat perspectives. It was encouraging to hear from the community partners this morning, and I think that both sides of the fence have barriers and positives and negatives, and so I'm excited to delve into that. And I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashley Walker, and I work with Frazier Revitalization, and I'm also a parent with DISD. I really feel privileged to be able to work in the community where I grew up, and I really want to see the community grow. So I'm very passionate about the work that I do, and I'm very involved in the community, and I'm really just excited to see what all we can come together and make happen.
Good afternoon. My name is Dolores Ravizzi Bell. My voice is scary. I'm the director over the After School and Curriculum Development Department for DeSoto Independent School District. I operate a $1.6 million grant under the U.S. Department of Education, or 21st Century After School Programs. We are an ACE program. I'm not new to this. I started with the original 21st Century program back in 1998, so I'm telling my age. But I am here to say we have 10 schools that I oversee, about 122 staff under me. I have 10 site coordinators who work diligently, and we service right now about 1,100 kids in after-school programming. So there are challenges, as Crystal stated, but the key is definitely working together. I think more importantly, principals, superintendents, teachers, parents buying in to what the purpose of after-school programming is really about. That is a key.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maria Ortiz, and I am a parent of DISD students. I also have more than 12 years attending an after-school program with kids. And I am part of Gloria's program. That's why she invited me over here. But I'm here because I want to give my perspective about me as a parent.
And I'm Deborah Bonner. I'm an assistant principal in Plano ISD at Shell Elementary, and I'm just here to talk about the after-school programs we have on our campus and the different challenges we might face with those.
Excellent. And so on this panel, we're really going to come from the perspective of our roles. And so the first question that Christina asked the community partners this morning, I think is very relevant to this, is thinking of the students, organization, or your children that you serve, what is the biggest need that you're looking for in after-school programs? And kind of currently where you're at, what are the biggest needs you see for your own children in after-school programs?
Well, the biggest need that I see is the communication with the school, the after-school program, and the parent. A lot of times it's hard, the schools, a lot of times the teachers, like someone said before, they don't understand the child and the community that they live in. They don't understand what that child goes through on a day-to-day basis. They don't understand, why Jim, every time he comes to class, he goes to sleep. Not knowing Jim is up babysitting his little brother at night because his mom works overnight. So if you have someone in the community that knows the family and
knows the situation that their family or child faces, and they can communicate that with the teachers in the school. That way they can be better understanding and they know a better way how to approach the situation.
Looking at it from a district's perspective, I worked 22 years in nonprofit. And from a nonprofit perspective, working in school districts with Dallas ISD and now DeSoto, from a nonprofit perspective, it looks totally different when you're actually working in the school district. People think, oh gosh, you guys got the district state money, you can do this. No, there's a lot of... Boy, my mic does not like me. I'll talk softer. Okay. But one of the things that I'm seeing now as a challenge... That better? Oh, good. Okay. I sing, and so I have this habit doing the mic. So one of the things that I'm seeing right now that I'm learning, you're never too old to learn. I told that to Dr. Vandell, excuse me. But one of the things that I'm learning now is the need, and you mentioned it very clearly earlier this morning, from a challenge is education. Staff development training for not just the new people that come on board, but your new grantees, your new staff that come on board. One of the young ladies mentioned what kind of things are offered. I can just tell you it is a challenge because when you bring in programs, you think because your district has all these great programs, they all connect. Absolutely not. They're even in their own world. So what I'm learning is try to bridge them together. And that calls for staff development training. So my coordinators work a 9 to 6, Monday through Saturday. And with that, Saturdays we rotate because they have lives and I understand that. But more importantly, what I'm finding out is that when staff development goes on for teachers, my people are on board too. They go to the trainings as well. In order to understand STAR testing, teach resource guides, training and curriculum development, lesson planning in a classroom to make your after-school program effective, they've got to know the language too. And so even downloading of grades and understanding the scoring and the benchmarks, this is important for your after-school staff. So I would encourage you all who have after-school programs, educate your staff. Make them sit in on classrooms. My staff sit in on classrooms every day. They meet with teachers every week. They have an IC coordinator at each campus. We talk about grades. I have to educate my people, and the best way to educate is put them in the spot. So that way you align with what goes on in the day and to the after-school piece, and it's more effective. But that's a challenge still, so we're keeping it going.
I'm going to say, like she mentioned, is communication, but also is the language. You know, in a lot of schools, a lot of parents only talk Spanish or another kind of language. And it's a big, big barrier there for us, like the parents, because sometimes we tell our children to interpret us with the teachers. And it's hard for them and hard for us because sometimes they understand, but they don't tell you the truth. Believe me, they don't tell you the truth. They always tell you what is better for them. And that's why they are in behind. We figured out something different than the teacher is telling them to tell us. So for me, I can say is the language, the communication, that help to know the community every day. You know, sometimes we only know the children, but the doctor mentioned before, we don't know the family around. We focus on the children, but we don't focus on the family. And this is happening in a lot of the parents. Because it happened to me that way. That's why when I found this after-school program when I attend, my mind opened because I wasn't speaking any English at all. So they helped me to teach me to help my children. That's what I tell you, they didn't tell us the truth.
I think in my district, what I see as a big need is affordable after-school programs for those kids. You know, some of the neediest kids who would benefit mostly from a chess club or a coding club, their parents can't afford to send them to those activities. So, I'd love to see us build some more resources for scholarships for those kids who could really benefit the most from it to be able to participate.
I think it's an interesting perspective that I want to point out when you've got Plano ISD, DeSoto, and Dallas ISD, just completely different sizes and types of districts. I know Plano is a fee-based after-school program.
Yes.
And then in DeSoto, they've got the Century 21, so they're able to do that at no cost.